gives me those nice wide angle, better quality shots that Facebook doesn't always let me get. Perfect. Well, how's it going? Oh, grab the coffee. Don't forget about that. Perfect. So as you're getting set up this morning, make sure you have a little bit of wall space. We'll throw our legs up the wall and we'll use the wall in a couple of other poses. I've even got some blocks floating around. I don't particularly, I try not to teach too much with props while we're doing at-home stuff because I never know what people have or don't have. So try to use the body as a prop. If you have blocks or something that can be used as a block, it's always a fun thing to add in. Get a little deeper, more relaxed into a few poses using props. You just either brings the ground closer, helps just give that feedback. We'll talk about that a little bit today as we start to use the wall a little bit more as our prop and get into some of that stuff. So creating that space and getting seated or laying down, starting in one of those positions or poses, the body starts to feel comfortable in. You start to relax and let go. Start to let that gaze go inward. One of those building of awarenesses. So a nice thing to do is close the eyes. Starting to work with the breath. And getting into those inhales and exhales. Maybe starting to notice the little bit of sound the breath can create. The space it creates, the little movements throughout the body, through the rib cage. Maybe feel yourself getting taller. And starting to breathe with the diaphragm, using that abdomen area to help feel the breath grow nice and large. That exhale, feeling everything draw back in. As you're breathing, trying to start to relax, also scan through that body. Start to notice what there is to notice. One thing I love to do as I scan through, usually the stuff that hurts, that aches, that feels tight or has tension, it's always the loudest. It's always the easiest to notice. But trying to fall away from that trap of misery-loving company and only focusing on what's bad in the body and how you don't feel good or this hurts and that hurts. I love to also notice things that feel good and open. Maybe something that already feels a little bit at ease. Maybe you're noticing just how beautiful that big breath is and how good that feels throughout the body. Trying to find something that balances out those shadow areas, as we often call them. It's okay that there are shadows. But if you only look at the shadow areas, you start to think the world is quite dark. The question is, where is the light? As our days start to get longer, I love that whole symbolism of returning back to the light, letting things get brighter. But the thing is, within our own body, that little joy, that little spark was always there. It's just our choice to recognize it. The sun always exists, even though we see a little less of it for a number of weeks. So within your own body, maybe even deeper within your own mind, maybe you start to notice those little sparks of light within you. How can you harness those, fanning the flame, helping those become brighter and stronger? The epic great journey that is like, nothing will master it all in this one little yoga class. Maybe with with that, we set our intention. That little word or phrase will guide our practice this morning. Nothing too complicated. Maybe it is just to be joyful throughout it. Maybe you're looking for an extra good stretch. So maybe your intention is to feel the stretch. Maybe it's a wonderful I am statement. I am full of light. I'm abundant. Sealing it in with a nice big breath. Find that inhale. And take that full exhale, really let it go. You're breathing out through the mouth or out through the nose. I can breathe out through the mouth just because I can make it be a little louder. Breathing out through the nose, also nice and calm. And maybe give that a try. Let's breathe in, nice and big, huge inhale. And a nice slow exhale out through the nose. Feel everything relax. Those shoulders relax back and down. And unclench the teeth, relaxing the jaw. So to find a few little wiggles and movements, maybe waking up into the fingers, into the toes. Today we'll get into the hips a little bit deeper. Work on a little bit of strengthening that whole area, lots of stretching through that whole area. We'll start out a little bit stronger, we'll get some good movements in. And then we'll find some nice restorative, more relaxing poses where we can just let everything soften and try to melt away. So that's the game plan. As you wake up the body and find a little bit more movement, you start to find some other wiggles and squeezes. Maybe start to move through the shoulders. Excellent. Wherever you're at, maybe drop your head over towards one side, getting into the neck a little bit. Then off towards the other side. Gentle with the neck. Finding the movement. I'll take that good morning stretch here. So whether you're seated or laying down, so just sweep those arms up overhead as you take a nice big inhale breath. Big breath in. Reach it up nice and tall. Really feel that reach right from the arms, the underarms, through the torso and the rib cage. Huge stretch. And take that exhale, relax those arms back down. There's the bend to the elbow. Dropping them back on the side of the body. Let's take one more of those big, beautiful stretches. Nice big inhale. Reach it up nice and tall. And exhale to release. Come on back down. Those little good morning stretches. Great way to get into the fascia, that connective tissue. Get that little fuzz feeling out of there and moving. Great thing to do first thing in the morning. Right before you get out of bed. Helps to wake up the body. Excellent. We'll do a little bit to start laying down today. So if you're seated like I am, let's roll things back and down, finding that nice reclined position. Shoulders roll back and down. I like to start off with this. Just move the ankle up the mat just a touch. And we'll bend the knees and we'll plant the feet down. Starting to feel that low back really connect in. Shoulders, create that space along the shoulder blades, a little tuck at the chin. See if you can really add in a few more vertebrae pressing down. Excellent. And then we'll just bring one knee in, hug it in, and the next in. Take that little rock from side to side. Great way to give that low back and that pelvis a little bit of love. Just waking up into that back body area. Maybe you feel it as a little massage over the shoulders. So good. We'll come to that nice stillness. cobbler pose. So you can do this with the feet up in the air. That's what I'm going for. But if you want, you can plant the feet down. Let those ankles come to touch and open up through the knees. Or you let those legs just float, reaching down for the ankles. Bring the soles of the feet together. So even if they're not pressing very much, or even if you're holding more towards the knees, starting to get some openness through the hips. I like to do this with my legs floating, because then I can have that little rocking from side to side and giving that low back a little more massage, a little more love. For more intensity, the more you work towards bringing the knees open, more in line with the ankles, the more intensity you'll feel this through those inner thighs. Trying to keep the shoulders relaxed. And then we'll start to release that. Bringing those knees right back over the hips here. And just bringing one in a little bit more, just a little squeeze, start to feel a little more into the glute. So you just hug one leg in. This other leg can plant down if you want more gentleness, but keeping it floating. This is an interesting way to add some change. We'll start to release that one side and come over towards the other side, getting into that outer bit of hip. If you notice that little bit of tension that's hanging out there, and then trying to soften and let that go. Starting to release that, bring those hands right onto the knees over the hips. Let's start to draw a few circles here. And circles can start nice and small, and maybe grow a little bit bigger. Maybe they grow even bigger, really tracing everything. An option to use more of the legs and the hands. Like just have a finger on the knee, helping guide the knee, but it's my legs that are using the power to find that movement and rotation. The other version is really holding onto the knees and letting the arms do the work. We'll go the opposite direction. Starting to get those circles going the other way. They're still circles, but switching it around just changes those angles, changes how the muscles fire and activate. And we'll come back to that stillness. And we'll start more of a forward and back motion. Just drawing one knee in and then the next, almost like you would in your toe taps. But using the support of the hands to really draw those knees closer in towards the body. We'll work towards strengthening of the hips. As we slowly release the hands. So bring those hands alongside the body and keep that forward and back motion trying to happen, really trying to draw those knees in close towards the body. So it's not really about extending the legs here, but trying to compress and bring everything in, working those hip flexors in just a bit of a different way here. So you don't have the full weight of the leg extending and drawing it in, but just a little bit smaller movement, trying to really squeeze and contract those hip flexors, bringing them in. Excellent. We'll get into those other motions as now we start to bring those feet either closer down towards the ground, so knees farther away from the body, or you can work on extending one leg long and then the next. Feeling now those hip flexors lengthen as you press the foot long, or even press the knee farther back. Feel that low back still trying to stay connected in. You'll start to use some of those lower abdominals here. As you extend the leg and draw the leg back in, trying to stabilize and stay nice and connected. If you want more here still, if you're like, ooh, core work, this is great. I still ate as if I had 14 people over at my house, but it was just me. Okay, well we can work with that. Lift the head, lift the shoulders. Getting into a bit more core. Those upper abdominals starting to work. We need to keep the head up. Elbows can be open or up towards the ceiling. Really, it's however you like to support the head. Excellent. We'll go for 3 more breaths here. Taking that inhale, and then that exhale. Breathing in, feeling strong. Taking that exhale, feeling everything engage. Excellent. And one more breath in. And a full breath out. Excellent. Bringing the head back down and bringing the feet down. Take a little windshield wiper, dropping the knees from side to side. Great way just to release any built up tension, trying to stabilize. And we'll come back to stillness. We'll bring those knees back to floating over the hips. Maybe pressing the ankles and the knees together. Feeling that little squeeze happen. Really squeezing everything. Beautiful. Bring those arms out a little bit farther, maybe even palms facing up. As we come towards a twist, but keeping things engaged here first. So squeezing the knees, squeezing the elbows, pressing that low back down. And then just slowly start to drop the knees towards one side. Keep the shoulders grounded down. Keep that squeeze happening here. We're using the obliques, feeling into that tipping point of the hip. And then relax everything down. So however those knees drop, maybe there's space in the air still. Maybe they drop all the way down. You can use the opposite direction that the knees have fallen, and maybe even drape a hand over the leg. Help deepen the stretch. Twists are nice and beneficial for helping like detox the cells. You get a nice twist through all of those internal organs here. So imagine like squeezing or wringing out a dish rag. Same kind of idea. Let's make sure that head's in a nice and neutral place as we start to release. Then using control here, trying to activate, maybe even here, squeezing the knees and the ankles together, maybe even pressing the hands down in towards the ground, and then start to, with control, bring those knees up nice and slowly, right through that nice center line. You can do this just relaxed if you want, but I thought we would just try firing up those muscles here. And keeping that squeeze happening, feeling that through the legs and the hips, and slowly dropping over towards the other side. Maybe use the arms here to find that tipping point. And then relax, drop the knees all the way down. Feeling how those muscles can protect the bones and the joints. And gaze off in the opposite direction. Maybe drape a hand over the knees. Taking a nice breath in. And a breath out, feeling those shoulders relax down. Bring that head back up to neutral. And releasing those arms. Starting to press those arms down and start to squeeze those legs together as you activate and engage. Feel everything become strong. And then see if you can start to just float those legs slowly up back towards that center point. And bring the entirety of the back down. Excellent. And let's reach on for the back of the legs and send the legs or the feet up towards the ceiling. Starting to wake up the hamstrings here. Maybe you add a flex to the feet. Maybe you've got a deep bend to the knees. Just feeling something through those hammies. Let's wake up into the feet a little bit. Starting to draw some circles with the toes, getting into the ankles. Let your circles really help point and flex the feet. So see if you can draw all the way around. Having both a point and a flex happen. And we'll go the opposite direction as well. Beautiful. Coming back to stillness. And just really bringing the soles of the feet towards the ceiling as much as you can. And we'll bend the knees and we'll make our way up to seated. So whether you just rock and roll up or roll onto your side and come on up. Maybe you align the ankles. Maybe you stack the legs. Maybe you sit on a block. Or even sit up against the wall, feeling the support of the wall. We'll get into some more of that kind of stuff tomorrow and more of our flow style class, using the wall again tomorrow as a support as we find movements, which is finding that seated position with the shoulders nicely stacked over the hips. So see if you can really find that center line. Take a nice inhale, getting a little bit taller, but exhale to relax those shoulders back and down, feeling that collarbone start to open up. Feel that little squeeze through the shoulder blades just a little bit. Beautiful. We'll inhale. Take a nice big reach up, reaching up nice and tall, either coming to steeple or interlacing at the thumbs. As we get just a bit into side body, tipping over towards one side, really reach nice and tall. Beautiful. Exhale, come on back up. Nice big reach up back through that center line, off towards the other side. Opening up. And reach it up. One more time, back over towards that first side. Really drawing that arm over. See if you can give that hand a little extra pull. And stacking shoulder right over shoulder. So not looking down towards the ground, but keep that openness as if that back were against the wall. Beautiful. One more little breath here as we hold and reach. Keep pressing the legs down. And come on back up. Beautiful. Nice reach up to reset. Then over towards that other side, and you're switching on maybe to the other wrist or pulling the other hand just a little bit more. Nice big stretch. Our side body is a part of our hips as well. And connecting our torso, our upper body to our lower body. Beautiful. Back up through center. And we'll drop it down into a forward fold. Relaxing through the shoulders. You can either have a flat back forward fold or you can round through. Find what feels good on your low back. Maybe it's a bit of movement. So I've been enjoying just moving a little bit more through my folds. And we'll start to rise back up. Excellent. Coming into an all fours position. So finding that nice tabletop position here. Making sure that you got a little bit of wall back behind you. So let me readjust my mat here. So with me aligning, I'm just making sure that when I kick a foot back, I can get the sole of the foot on the wall without adjusting too much. Excellent. Beautiful. So if you need a little pillow on your knees, or if you need to fold the mat up at any point, go ahead and do so. I always love just a touch of cat-cow, moving through that spine a little more, so that inhale breath start to look up. Take that exhale, round that spine up towards the ceiling, maybe press into those hands. Beautiful, taking that nice inhale, moving with your own breath here. Let the breath be your guide. We'll take a few inhales and exhales. I love to really slow line down, feeling vertebrae by vertebrae, and accentuating the movements. But maybe you like to move a little bit quicker, or you have a shorter breath, and work with that. One more, wherever you're at. And finding that nice neutral flat back. Beautiful. Start to become aware of the shoulders. Imagine balancing the block on those shoulders. So almost like dropping the torso down just a little bit, making those shoulders really nice and broad. Maybe you'll widen the stance between your hands to give yourself some room for the torso to drop down. Fingers are nice and wide, lots of surface area happening here. And then we'll kick that right foot back, starting to connect it with the wall. press it in. So see here, wherever your hip or your foot has landed, and see if you can roll that hip down, bringing that foot nicely in line with the hip and with the rest of the body. Drawing those ears far from shoulders, really stomp into that wall, pressing into the heel, but also into the ball of the foot and the toes, activating nice and strong. Beautiful. Finding that engagement a little bit through the core. Excellent. So we'll walk those left fingertips forward, keeping them down on the ground, just using the ground as support. Keep pressing into the fingertips as if you're trying to almost stabilize or even float that right hand up. So that left hand is taking lots of pressure, right foot lots of pressure. We have that nice support from the wall. Excellent. And then start to release that. Bring that hand back towards center. Keep that foot on the wall just for now. Excellent. And then we'll start to open up through that foot, right through that hip. So starting to rotate that right hip open. Feel how the toes want to now spin out towards the side. Let them spin open. Excellent. It's almost like you could become light on that right hand. Maybe come up to fingertips, or maybe you even go for a little gate pose here. Gate pose is a fun one. You can reach up for the ceiling. This can also be like a modified half moon pose, so instead of that left knee being more of your foot. Excellent. Let's roll things back down. Bring that hand down. Still active. We're still using lots of muscles here. And then we'll release that knee. Take a sway from side to side. Bring the knee back down. Maybe shake out the wrists a little bit. Odds are you're feeling that through the left side just as much as the right side. As we open up that hip, that activates into that standing leg, that standing hip, and gives it a little bit of a workout. And we'll come back to that nice tabletop position, pressing the hands down. Full engagement through the core is nice, and that left foot back. And trying to align that leg and roll that left hip down. Maybe you gaze back and look at those toes, making sure those toes are really pressing down. Full engagement through the core. Keep pressing into the hands here. So the wall is our prop, but it's not here to necessarily make it easier. It's here to give us that feedback of where the floor would be if we did this standing, or just that feedback, bringing in that extra little bit. Beautiful. Drawing those ears far from the shoulders. Strong engagement through that core as we now walk the right hand forward. Pressing firmly into that right hand. Being strong here. And creating that feedback now through right hand. Feeling it journey across the arm, through the shoulder, across the body, and down that left leg as you stomp into the floor or into the wall and press into the floor. Maybe even that left hand becomes light and lifts up off the ground. And just reversing our tiger a little bit. Bring that left hand back down and start to soften. Bring that right hand back in. And then from here, let's open things up. So still staying strong through the core. Maybe you've noticed you started to sag into that low back. Draw that belly button up and in. And then start to flip that hip open, stacking hip over hip. Toes spin out towards the side. My foot always goes up here. I guess I never noticed that until I did this just now on video. So you have the option to keep both hands down, or you can work on stacking that left shoulder over right shoulder, coming towards that gate pose. Maybe you reach up towards the ceiling. And can hang out on hip. Keep pressing into that right hand. Keep pressing into that right knee, and keep pressing into the left foot. Drawing those ears far from shoulders, keeping length through that spine. Then we'll drop things back down. Bring the hand down, rolling the hip down, and release the foot. Have that feel. Shake from side to side. You'll find all of the little spots through your hip flexors there. She found that super challenging today with the wall. I love gate pose, it's one of my favorites. With the wall, you want that extra bit of feedback. Alright, let's give our knees and our wrists a little bit of a break, and we'll come into the legs at the wall. You won't be here for the rest of class. Just be here for a little bit as we play around. So, ultimately, we're just trying to sit against the wall and shoot our legs up there. But I find the easiest way to keep things nice and snug against the wall is to actually sit right up against it here first. Yeah, well, let me just spin this and I'll show you a little bit more. So sitting kind of on your side, tuck us right up against the wall. And then laying all the way down, rolling onto the back, and the legs will just float on up. So if this right here is not accessible, if you're like, oh my gosh, my hamstrings, then bend the knees. Other variations include bring the sit bones farther away from the wall, because then you're not creating that full 90-degree angle, or even tucking a pillow or a folded blanket underneath that sacrum area. So a great way to modify, making it more gentle. There's no expectation the legs need to be straight here. Maybe it's something you work towards, maybe you work towards straightening one and the next, and we alternate back and forth. So in this neutral position, let's focus in on that spine and relaxing those shoulders. Are they hunching up towards the ears? Can you start to soften them? Bring them down. Arms can be alongside the body, or you can adjust them, rotating them, maybe reaching out wide like a T, palms facing up. And let's start to notice those feet. Let's add that flex into the foot. Notice, are the toes equal distance away? Do you have the big toe maybe a little bit closer towards the ground? Make those feet as flat as possible. Taking just a few rounds of breath here in this neutral, opening up through hamstrings, getting into glutes and low back. This is a great position for kind of returning that blood flow back down out of the legs, more into the torso. Really great if you have headaches, because it kind of creates a little waterfall of blood flow back down. You've got migraines, this is a great one to kind of add in. Migraines are in the brain, so giving that blood flow back, that opportunity. This is a very calming pose. So if you find that you deal with a lot of anxiety or stress, maybe doing this on your break time or once you get home, just to let everything go. And then we'll get into a few different variations of this. One of the most natural ones from here is to start to create some distance between the ankles. So starting to widen the legs. Maybe it's just a little bit. Really, you can go as much or as little as you want. This is a great one to use your strap or your blocks in. So a strap is nice because you can actually just lasso the feet and adjust the distance between there so that your hip flexors aren't engaged to try to keep the legs out at a certain angle. And everything just starts to relax a little bit more. But if you're looking for more of that yin style practice where a few things are still active and you work through some stuff, that's when you can kind of work with that. So maybe the legs open up a little more. The blocks can also be beneficial for propping up underneath the leg in that regard. So maybe the ankles and the feet are still active here, having that flex of the foot, and we'll get deeper into your inner thighs, or you can let this be restorative, letting everything relax, maybe a touch more of a point to the foot. The angle of the foot, to be honest, it doesn't matter. It's all about your hips and the shape of that hip socket and that femoral head and how things insert there. So lots of times in the old ways of practicing yoga, they'd be really strict about the angle of the foot with the leg and things like that. But as long as it feels good for you, this is a great one for those inner thighs, and you might even be feeling this right across the inner part of the knee. So this is a good one for if you're a golfer or even a runner, getting into some of these muscles that help protect and surround the knee. Those inner thighs don't stop above the knee, they actually insert just beyond or to that shin area. That's why you'd be feeling this across the knee. And if you are, and if it's too much, bring the feet a little bit closer together. We'll take 2 or 3 more breaths here. Starting to slow things down and trying to relax the mind just as much as the body. Trying to not let it race through, going from task to task, getting lists in the head. And just put those on a little mind shelf and leave them there. We can come back to it later. It's not so much trying to clear the mind and having there be not a single thought in there. I don't necessarily think that's really achievable. Their minds are designed to think, but the goal is to not be interacting with them. As those thoughts pop up, just imagining them like you're gazing at clouds in the sky, just seeing them there, let them float on by. And start to slowly bring those feet back up towards center. Maybe do one at a time, maybe do a little of both together. Taking a bit to come back up. Coming back towards your neutral. So maybe that's legs straight, or maybe that's a bend to the knees. Let's start to get a little bit deeper into the hips here. One thing that I often do towards the end of my classes is that thread the needle or that figure 4 stretch, where we're going to do that same thing but with the wall today. We'll start extra gentle, so you might already have a little bit of that stretch feeling happening from just having the legs be floating up. And so I'm going to start with my right ankle. I'm just going to cross my right ankle over top of my left. A little bend to that right knee. And I'm going to start to slide that right foot down the leg until I feel what I want to be feeling. So I'm always trying to push that right leg back against the wall. And then wherever you feel that as enough, that's where you hang out. If you can get that ankle just past the knee, kind of more on that side area. You know, like, well, I can't drag my leg down anymore, but I'm not feeling what I want to be feeling through my hip yet. This is where we can add in some more intensity. I'm starting to now bend that left knee and starting to slide that left ankle or heel down the wall. So feel how now that's drawing the legs in closer towards the torso. You're probably feeling a little bit more through that right hip. Trying to keep those hips still relaxed. So maybe that left foot just slides down a little bit. Maybe you connect the sole of the left foot in. Trying to keep those sits bones down. So at some point you'll kind of feel the glutes wanting to lift up off the ground and away from the wall. Away from the wall is normal, but if it starts to float up, you might be trying to go a little bit too deep here. Or maybe it feels good. But the more you can stay connected, the more you'll have the support in that area, and the other parts of the hip start to relax and stretch. And so we'll take a total of 7 to 10 breaths here. That would be about 2 breaths in. And maybe this is where you start to adjust through the arms. This is a great one to come into those box arms for, to give those shoulders a nice little stretch. Box arms are interlacing the fingers and bringing the hands behind the head, letting those elbows open up. Trying to connect as much of the arms down with the ground as you can. Take a breath here. Find an inhale. Maybe feel yourself getting a little taller. Feel that little tuck in the chin. And on the exhale, relax the shoulders. Feel the shoulder blades relax. Relax down the spine and into the hips. Work on softening, releasing, and just taking it one breath at a time. At any point, you can adjust the pose, maybe softening it if it's increasing in intensity. Or maybe if you found some openness, maybe you slide that foot down a little bit more, adding in a little bit more challenge. Taking another breath in, and another breath out. Noticing what you feel, maybe letting yourself feel. We'll slowly start to release and make our way back up towards that neutral. So starting to slide that left foot right back up. And nice and slowly dragging that right ankle up the leg. And connecting both heels against the wall. You can release the arms should you want as well. Taking a little moment for a little rebound. Maybe you feel a little tingle sensation through that right side of the body. Letting everything rebalance and become neutral. And then we'll make our way into that left side, starting really gentle. I'm just crossing that left ankle on top of right and letting that foot start to drop down the body. And pressing that left knee open as it moves. Maybe you simply just hang out here. Maybe work on finding that openness through the hip, relaxing through the knee, and then pressing it open again. Or as you're ready, you can start to add in that extra intensity of bending through the right knee. Maybe sliding that heel down just a touch, or maybe a lot. You're welcome to boss arms again. Maybe bring the opposite thumb on top, or maybe just find a different variation for the arms. So reaching about wide like a T, still creates that openness, but is a little bit more gentle. Maybe you reach the arms up a little bit higher like the Y in YMCA. Or if you want lots of stretching for those shoulders, you can reach for opposite elbows. Try to drop those arms overhead. Working on lengthening through the shoulders, the shoulder blades, but also softening. One of my yogis shared a great little article about imposter syndrome from Elephant Journal, I believe, which is actually a really great yoga resource. I read a lot of their stuff. And it was talking about being in studio versus virtual or like Zoom class or these like little live streams. think the live streams even more because no one can see them. But the Zoom classes, how some people are just so panicked about people being able to see them. And that's the same thing about being in the studio as well. People can see you, and your practice just kind of automatically changes. Maybe you work a little bit harder because you're worried about what someone else might think, or maybe you just work harder because you feed off the energy. It's not necessarily a bad thing either. I actually really miss group classes for that. It's just watching people give it to the next level or take what they need from it. I find that so inspiring. But feeling along the way like you're the imposter, that the yoga that's happening around you, maybe through the teacher or whatever it is, can be so real that you're struggling through that to be like, how do I fit in here? My mind is racing. My body doesn't want to do this or that. And feeling like you just don't quite fit in. Well, that's one thing that I love about the virtual yoga. It's one thing that I love about even this style of yoga that I try to offer to people is take it with where you're at and check your ego. Not meaning that you're egotistical in a bad way, but just that should. What should you be doing? What should you not be doing? That is driven by your ego, that own expectation. And let that go. No one else really sees you, and if they do, they don't care. Especially if we do more of that Zoom format, no one else is watching. And if you are, you're like a quarter of an inch on their screen. And then just the freedom that comes from that, making your practice your own. So in this pose, as we take just another breath or two, how do you make it your own? What do you actually need from it? Maybe you add in some more intensity, you really want to feel that stretch and that depth. Maybe you need a little softness, a little more gentleness for yourself and for your body. Yes, all of that to say is I don't really think you can be an imposter at yoga. I don't think that there really is that expectation that you have it all together with this tiny little body and these cute little outfits and being able to do all of these strong poses. I'll start to release this pose, sliding that foot back up the wall, nice and slow. And then releasing the left leg up. I think that imposter syndrome just denotes our own expectations, or maybe even the culture that exists in that studio community. Finding your neutral again. Maybe legs straight, maybe you bend the knees in towards the chest. Take what you need. All right, I got one more little legs up the wall move for us. And it's going to kind of incorporate a little bit of a bridge pose. So bending the knees and planting the feet along the wall. I really like this because this is some great work for the spine. And really, it kind of helps you prep for your shoulder stand. So maybe that's something you're working towards or working on. And you can do this extra gentle variation of so the feet, soles of the feet planted against the wall, and start to create that feedback, start to press into the wall a little bit, and keep those knees aligned, so don't let them split open. And start to feel how that low back starts to float up off the ground. If it just wants to come up an inch, that's great, and then you can roll it back down. You can actually give yourself a nice little massage with those muscles along the spine here. Or if you start to press those shoulder blades in, keep a nice tuck to the chin here. Maybe you press in a little bit more. You can adjust the feet as you need to, and you can hold under the hips as you work the hips up and pressing into the wall. Lots of support, feeling those shoulder blades press down. So all of the weight goes into the shoulders. Nice little bridge pose. you have shoulder stag in your practice, maybe you play around with bringing one foot up off the wall, the next foot up off the wall. Maybe get both up. Connecting the feet back down. And starting to roll down as slow as possible, with vertebrae at a time. Coming all the way back down. And then you can release away from the wall at any point. We'll start to move towards that freestyle and that Shivasana. You are welcome to stay with the legs up the wall. Lots of people love this, but we have been here for a decent amount of time now. So maybe move through the legs, bend the knees. Maybe roll off towards the side and take a different position. Starting to lay down flat again. Dropping things over towards one way. And press it with yourself up. So moving towards that freestyle. Asking yourself, what else do you need before you settle into Shivasana? All kinds of options. Maybe you need something seated. Maybe you take a seated forward fold. Maybe you lay down, just out flat, and stretch out. Maybe taking that good morning stretch. Take extending the arms overhead and pointing through the toes. Maybe you just sit with your back against the wall. Feeling that little pull of gravity. Back through the spine. Maybe take a child's pose. A little snail pose. Snail pose is your child's pose, both your hands tucked behind your feet. And then whenever you're ready, start to find that final position. You're doing something for your freestyle specific to one side. Start to balance it out. Getting in the other side, maybe you got to twist in or you want some side body work. A front-facing Shivasana would probably feel really good here. If you've got two blocks and a bolster, you just lay down on your front body, that works too. We can make it more supportive by bringing blocks underneath the shoulders. And if you've got a thin bolster or even a rolled up blanket, putting it underneath the tops of the foot or the ankle feels really nice. I wish I could kind of show you, but it would just look like I'm laying down on the ground. I need a person that I could model this on for you. Finding your final position. Anything that's comfortable works for me, as long as you can connect in with the breath. Start to relax that body. Maybe letting those eyes close down. Taking that full inhale. Really breathing in. And softening as you breathe out. Noticing what there is to notice here. That ability to spot, become aware of change from the beginning of class. We did that little scan through the body. Maybe as you're scanning through now, you're just simply becoming aware of those little changes and differences. Noticing maybe a little more openness through the collarbone or even through the spine, because we did a decent amount of work there. Maybe the feet feel good from having them elevated. Maybe you have still a little bit of stiffness or soreness. We got into some areas that you don't usually work. Practicing that awareness non-judgment. Just simply noticing it. I'm not calling it good or bad, but just letting it. And finding that stillness. Stillness in the body, the mind. And maybe just coming back to the breath. Trying to lengthen each breath. Letting it become fuller, deeper. Big breath in. Full breath out. Remembering that intention you set at the beginning of class. If it no longer serves the rest of your day, maybe think of a new intention. Something to help guide you, keep you inspired, and keep you grounded. And starting to wake up the body. Finding the little wiggles into the extremities, those fingers and toes. Maybe little squeezes through the shoulder blades. Squeeze the glutes, maybe curl the toes in. Maybe curl the fingers in one by one, make a little fist, and then open the fingers up one by one. Any little movements you love to take. Finding a bit more movement, whatever that means to you. Maybe roll onto your side and take a nice fetal position. We'll bend to the knees. Use our bottom arm as a pillow. It's always nice. And then start to press yourself back up to a nice seated position. Whatever is comfortable for you. We'll finish class off. We'll take 3 cleansing breaths just to get rid of anything else we no longer need from within us. And getting ready, nice big inhale, breathing in. Take that exhale, sigh it out. Another big inhale. And exhale, release. Last one, huge breath in, filling up the lungs as much as you can, breathing deep into that diaphragm space, filling everything, and huge exhale, let it all out, create lots of noise as you let it all go. And sitting up nice and tall, roll those shoulders back and down. Bring those hands towards heart center. That position of gratitude and thankfulness. Allowing there to be a little appreciation in each day. Thank you for sharing your practice with me, letting me guide you. I hope you have just a fantastic rest of your day, filled with many moments of joy. May every step you take be blessed. Namaste.